Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of castingacross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. I don't know about you, but we're halfway through March, the time of this recording here in the year of our Lord, 2026, and things have thawed out in New England, but we have snow in the forecast, and I am tired of it. Like, I'm at the point where I'm okay with not skiing again this year. I just want my rivers to run nice and clear, and for the bugs to start moving and for the fish to start moving. But I can't control those things, so I guess I'm just going to let it go, which honestly, my initial podcast topic was not talking about fly rods and the questions that I'm frequently asked. It was to actually talk about how a lot of people in fly fishing need to chill out. And but I figured, you know what, that's almost antithetical. To spend 20 minutes talking about people chilling out isn't very chill. So I'm going to chill out about the weather being something I can't control, and hopefully other people will chill out about things they need to chill out about. But that's neither here nor there. That's a minute of wasted time when I try to keep content focused and at a relatively banter-free level, which when you're doing this yourself, it really should be easy to be banter-free. But I've just shown you for now, a minute and 15 seconds, how that isn't the case. All right, let's dive right into it. So you know that every 10 episodes, I do a questions, comments, accusations podcast. And that takes in the kind of stuff that comes in over the course of the months, like emails and comments on social media and submissions on the website. People have specific questions or things they want to share. That said, I get feedback from other places. So in fact, last time I did one of these, one of the accusations podcast, I mentioned some of the information that came in via the fly fishing shows as I was giving my presentations. And so I interacted with that live with them when they asked those questions, but then I share that with you because very rarely is a question asked that is only applicable to one person, especially in fly fishing. But something that I have on the website, and I didn't mention this last week because for some reason I couldn't find it last week, but I have a page called Fly Rod FAQs, and having sold fly rods. That was my very first job in fly fishing. I was working in a fly shop, and then having sold fly rods for a small independent company, and then having taught casting lessons, and then having done some guiding, and then working at with a nonprofit for teenagers. Then with Casting Across, I've answered a lot of questions about fly rods because that probably is the biggest kind of specific question I get. When people ask questions about how to fish, I mean, it's wide ranging. It's anything and everything, right? Especially if they're new. And so there's so many different topics. When it comes to one specific type of question, fly rods really are the top of that list because people see that as an investment and they want to make sure that when it comes to fishing, they're able to do everything they want to do and they don't want to make a bad choice with their $100, $500, whatever it may be. So what I want to do today is kind of touch on a random assortment of fly rod FAQs that I've gotten multiple times over the years. And so I'm going to be definitely elaborating much more because I try to keep these FAQ answers like 2 to 3 sentences on the website. So these are going to be much, much longer answers. And so we'll dive right in with this first one. How much do I need to spend for a good rod? This is a wonderful question. One of the things that I really try to communicate, whether I am teaching teenagers about fly fishing, whether I'm giving a presentation to a group of people who've been fishing for a long time here on the podcast, you don't need to break the bank. That is a misconception that I think is more often perpetuated by people outside of fly fishing than people inside of fly fishing. Because honestly, I'm thinking of reps from the big companies that I know and that I talk to, and yeah, they want to sell their stuff, but they don't say that, oh, you need to buy the best fly rod. I mean, they make the best fly rod because people are going to pay money for that highest dollar fly rod, but the stuff that comes in at a much lower price point is totally game for them as well. So how much do I need to spend for a good fly rod? And I would say the answer is not a lot. um, I think that some of my favorite fly rods that I fish run between 250 and 450. Okay. Now, do I have rods that are much more expensive than that? Absolutely. But some of my favorite fly rods land in that kind of mid range for some of the smaller brands and mid to low range for some of the larger brands. And there's a few reasons for that. I especially feel like the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years, the most expensive fly rods are usually relatively fast fly rods, which is all fine and good for saltwater. And but that said, I really don't like fishing really fast fly rods for trout. Even on open water, even on big rivers, even where I might be encountering some wind, I still like that medium fast rod that's going to allow me to control my stroke a little bit more than if I have to move very quickly with a fast fly rod. So all of that to say that a lot of the highest end fly rods from manufacturer to manufacturer are going to be a lot faster. So that's why I think they're great and they are very appropriate for certain applications, especially again if you're fishing in the salt. But for a trout fly rod, I'm not going to turn to turn a strange glance at you if you do spend over $1,000 on a graphite rod. But I think that for someone who's saying how much do I need to spend, I would say don't go bargain basement. Okay, don't go and buy something at Walmart. Don't go buy something at Dick's Sporting Goods. If that's all you can afford, then awesome, go for it. I would maybe buy something online through Amazon before I bought something on at Walmart, just because you're going to be getting probably higher end blank materials for the same price. And what do I mean by that? Let me dive into that before I answer the question a little bit more. The stuff that you're going to get at Walmart or at Dick's Sporting Goods or at wherever, the place that is going to have maybe 2 or 3 options for fly rods, they're probably going to run like $50, $75 for a combo, not even just a fly rod. You're going to be looking at probably a composite blank. It's going to be graphite with some fiberglass mixed in, or it's going to be really low end graphite. If you get something on Amazon, and again, I haven't done this, and this might be a good idea for an article in the future, a podcast in the future. But what I do know from some of the brands that are selling in that $50 to $75 price range on Amazon, they're probably going to be the same blanks that you are going to get in the low end of some of the smaller fly rod companies. The primary reason for that is the majority of your blanks are coming out of a few places, out of China and out of South Korea. Of course, we have blanks that are being rolled here and other people that roll blanks all over the world. But a lot of the mass produced blanks are coming out of China and South Korea. And so you can probably get a better deal if you want to go bargain basement if you get online. But that said, you can find a fly rod company that's a smaller fly rod company that's going to sell you an entry level fly rod for around $100, $150 that is going to do really well. Just check out reviews. Email me, email other people that have fished them that put reviews on YouTube or on their website and ask those questions. But you can get a good fly rod for $150. I think one of my favorite small stream fly rods that I let my kids fish with, but I really enjoy it as well, even though I have some that, triple, quadruple, its price tag, are from small companies that are about $150. Now, if you want a really functional fly rod, then yeah, I would say the mid-level rods from some of the bigger companies are going to do just fine for you. Okay, and there you're talking about $350 and even less. And my other big suggestion would be just go out and cast them, and go out and cast them in realistic circumstances. So if you know that you're going to be only making those 20-foot casts to brook trout or cutthroats up in mountain streams, then don't try to bomb out 50 yards. That'd be impressive. 50 feet. Just try to cast that 20 to 25 feet with accuracy. If you're going to be fishing, for bass, then don't do your demo casting with nothing on the end of your line and leader. put on, just a piece of yarn or something like that, a 3-inch piece of yarn to try to get some of that wind resistance in. But make those casts and say, well, what can I really perform well with? And if budget is a concern, then I think even more so than if you are okay with spending $600 or $700, if you feel like you need to keep it under 400, 300, something like that, then definitely take the time to do demo casting and see what's going to work for you, as opposed to taking a flyer on something and just buying blindly online. So I would say that if you shoot for 200, 250, you can probably get a good rod, and you can probably get some good combos out there for that price range. I've said it before, but some of the stuff that Reddington sells for combos for like that $200 to $300 range, really, really good. Risen Fly Fishing is a smaller company that puts good packages together. Same deal. So there's a big name and a smaller name that will give you things at a good price. I could talk about that much longer, but we're gonna keep it moving. All right, here's another one. Isn't 7 feet or shorter too short for a good fly cast? So this is one of the questions I get from folks who want to buy a do-it-all fly rod, but they more like this, and I've seen this question probably 3 or 4 times in the last year from people emailing me. Most of my fly fishing is done on mountain streams, but I want something where I can go and fish on a bigger river if I need to, which is a perfectly reasonable request. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself with a small stream fly rod. So personally, the very first fly rod I bought was a 7-foot 3-weight. I still love that rod. It's a St. Croix Avid, which they don't make anymore for fly rods. St. Croix Avid you can buy as a bass rod now, I think. But I love it. It's just a nice, crisp but delicate tip. But it really has a stiff butt section, so I can cast anything I want to. And this is, to answer the question, why I think that a 7-foot rod is totally fine if it's a rod that can cast. I can, and I have, taken that 7-foot 3-weight down to the tailwaters in Arkansas. Back when I was a teenager and before I got my 9-foot 5 weights and things like that, I would fly with this 2-piece 7-foot rod. So I got this, 3.5-foot rod tube. I'm taking on the airplane down to the Little Red River, down to the White River, and I am throwing on my, size 6 conehead woolly buggers. And you have to slow down your stroke a little bit and apply power in the right way. And I'm making those casts at 50, 60, 70 feet, right? I'm also bombing out the little dry flies. And there's really nothing stopping you from making all the casts that you need to make with a short fly rod, assuming that fly rod isn't noodly, and assuming that you work on your casting mechanics. A rod is only as good as the person wielding it. And that's true whether the rod is long or whether the rod is short. Don't think that just getting a longer fly rod is going to make you a better caster, or having a shorter rod is the reason why you're not casting very well. I can say for certain that there's some things where there are smaller or shorter rods, where they excel at. One of those is casting in the wind. If you want to drop your arm down and make a lower cast kind of parallel to the water, I absolutely find that better. I also think that if your rod is shorter, then you're going to struggle with picking lineup off the water if it's at distance, and so you just need to take that into account. And so you could easily get frustrated when you make that back cast that it's falling apart already if you didn't take into account that you're got 2 less feet of rod to pull that line up off the water and to deal with all that water tension, surface tension. So all that to say, 7 feet or shorter is totally fine for a good fly cast, assuming the rod can handle it based on its action, and assuming that you can cast that thing. Okay, actually, I had to take a brief break there. My dog needed some attention. I've been out of town for a couple days, and he came and he asked me some questions about fly rods, and so I had to give him a little bit of love. All right, back to it. How about this one? What will happen if I use my freshwater rod in the saltwater? What will happen if I use my freshwater rod in the saltwater? And the answer is, hopefully you catch fish. If you have a 6-weight, 7-weight, 8-weight, 9-weight that is a freshwater rod, by all means you can use it in the saltwater. Just rinse the thing off. Here's the thing. I am kind of paranoid about my gear. And if I know I'm not going to be fishing the salt multiple days in a row, I'm going to wash that thing off immediately if I even have the inclination that I might not get back out in the next day or so, because I don't want to forget it. And consequently, it doesn't matter if it's quote-unquote saltwater gear or not. And so I would recommend that. If you are wanting to chase some schoolie stripers and you have your 6-weight trout set up, go for it. If you are wanting to cast for, sea trout or something like that, and you've got your bass rod that you fish for a smallmouth with, a largemouth with, make it happen. Just rinse your stuff off, and it will work just fine for that. That said, well, yeah, that said, just because it's a brown rod or a green rod, you can use it in the saltwater. It doesn't need to be a navy blue rod like a lot of them are. But I will say there is something to be said for having a rod with a grip that is built for pushing larger flies out at distance. I don't think having the cigar style grip is going to limit you. In fact, don't let it limit you. But when you look at two rods, and this happens more and more in some of the different rod manufacturers, where they have a 6-weight and a 7-weight that is, one is built for saltwater or big game, and one is built more traditionally for freshwater. So you look at that, and it may be a 6-weight with a half Wells grip or a full Wells grip, where you have that where it angles up where your thumb goes, and then there's also a fighting butt on it. And those things will be beneficial if you do find yourself in that situation time and time again. That allows you to really thumb into that cast a little bit more. It's more comfortable. It keeps your hand more steady. Again, and these things are all relatively, it's relative minutia if you're not fishing in those situations a lot. But if you find yourself fishing that way more and more and more, again, you're going to say, it would be nice if that I had some place where my forefinger and my thumb could really press into as I'm making these longer casts. And that fighting butt, if I want to drop that rod down and I want to fight that fish, which you're not going to get in most typical freshwater rods. So that's something just to keep in mind. But at that point, you might be saying, I'm just going to go ahead and get an 8-weight. I don't need a second 6-weight, which is probably going to be most likely what you do. So kind of the progression would be, use your freshwater gear. If you find yourself fishing that way a lot more, buy something that might be a little bit more appropriate. But if you do want to buy something that is like your freshwater gear and you find yourself doing it a lot, then most manufacturers will sell that 6-weight, that 7-weight that is dialed up for saltwater with saltwater components. So I mentioned the fighting butt and the grip, the cork, but it could also be they have like a stainless steel or like anodized aluminum, probably not stainless steel, anodized aluminum or some other synthetic reel seat, so that it stands up a little bit more, as well as the guides, whatever the guides are made of, are going to be hold up a little bit better in the saltwater environment. But still, rinse the thing, rinse it. I don't see this on my list, but I'm going to say to ask this question because this is one that I think about a lot. So I spend time on Facebook Marketplace. I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook because it's bad news. That's my humble and honest opinion. Facebook and most social media like that is just bad news. But I like Facebook Marketplace, and I love how it pays attention to me, and it gives me an algorithm that just shows me fly rod after fly rod after fly rod. So I see people selling their new fly rods at just ridiculous prices. Like, seriously, I'm not going to save $20 buying an Orvis Helios from you if I can go get a brand new one from Orvis. Like, if you want to sell that, you got to drop it down a couple $100. And then people who are selling absolute trash. I mean, we're talking, stuff from, like I was saying before. Oh, that's kind of offensive to say that. How about this? People who are selling fly rods that were probably only $25 to $50 when they were bought 10 years ago, and they're saying their fly rod's $100. But it's almost comical. But then you run into good buys, right? So, for example, there's somebody in my neighborhood who is selling a Sage Graphite 3, which I have one of those, and I really, really like it. I have a 9-foot 6-weight, and I really like it. And I think if mine broke, I would go out and buy this one. As it stands, I don't need two of them, and I don't want to spend $250 on a second one, because it was probably $250, 25 years ago when I bought the thing. But it's a great fly rod. And honestly, for somebody looking for a medium fast action rod, a 2-piece medium fast action rod, it's a great buy. And so what I would say is, if you see something on Facebook Marketplace, and the cool thing about Facebook Marketplace is it gives you the perimeter of like where this person is located. You can coordinate with them. If you feel comfortable going and meeting them somewhere and casting that fly rod, then you can do that. I've done that before with people and here's what I do is I say, hey, can I come? I'm going to bring a reel. Can I cast at your property, or can I take the fly rod somewhere? And if they say no, then I say, all right, well, thanks, but no thanks, right? And then I also bring cash, and I bring only the amount of cash I'm willing to spend. And interestingly enough, recently somebody had an Orvis Superfine, and it was a good rod. It said it was in mint condition, but it looked like the dog got a hold of the grip. I was like, I'm gonna have to do some work to fix that thing up. And it wasn't the precise rod that I wanted. It was the 3-weight, the tippet, when I wanted something else. But I thought, you know what, they were asking a reasonable price for it, so I went and cast it, and I said, $50 off this, and I'll give you cash right now. And they said no. Well, guess what? Here we are, like 6 months later, and they've dropped it $50. And now, if I go, I'm not going to offer them the sticker price. But those would be my words of wisdom with that. Go and ask to cast the rod. Inspect it. Look at the ferrule ends. Look at the male end. Make sure that there's no chips. Look at the female end. Make sure there's no chips and no cracks. Look at the tip top. Look at the wraps. Run your fingers down the blanks to make sure there's no bumps, irregularities, things like that. It could just be an imperfection in the epoxy or in the wraps, which might be totally fine, but it also could be indicative of something that's happened. And again, not that someone's trying to con you, but you just want to make sure everything looks good. Check out the grip. Check out the where the reel seat enters the grip, where where the butt of the rod is. Make sure nothing is loose. And again, if you know your way around fly rods, first of all, you probably don't need to hear me say this, but you can probably fix some of those things relatively easily. But also check what things are going for. You don't want to be ripped off, and just because you get excited because a rod that you like is available nearby, make sure that price for that year or that era is worthwhile. And the other thing too, if you're buying an older fly rod, an older bamboo fly rod, or even an older fiberglass fly rod, bring a couple of weight reels if you have those on hand, because sometimes those rods are just not labeled in a way that lines up with contemporary line weight designations. And you might say, oh, this thing is terrible with a 5-weight. Well, you throw a 6-weight on there and now it really shines, or something to that effect. All right. So those are just some questions. Some fly rod FAQs. This is a kind of a podcast episode I could do over and over again, but as far as today goes, I think we probably hit our limit. If you have a question about fly rods, there's a good chance that you could find the answer over at my fly rod FAQ page, castingacross.com/fly-rod-FAQs. FAQs, right? Or, of course, you can just put that FAQs down in the search bar. This week on Casting Across, Monday's article is called Bright Trout in a Drab World. Just talking a little reflective experience about being on the water in the middle of winter and everything being kind of gray and quiet and still, and how that is a little bit unnerving, but that when you start fishing, everything kind of comes together. It resonated. People liked it. That's always good. Wednesday's article is called Video, Dark Skies Fly Fishing. And this is my latest book review, but this is a magazine review, not just one issue either, just 10 issues in. Dark Skies Fly Fishing is a great little read. And I have contributed to 40% of the issues that have come out. So I highly recommend you check it out, not just to read my contributions, but all the other ones that are out there. There are links where you can access that on that article, but you can just go to darkskiesflyfishing.com and you can read a sample of the latest magazine, and you can subscribe and read some of the back issues, which I definitely think is worthwhile. This week's recommendation on the podcast is a vast improvement on something you probably already own. So if you have bought a fly fishing vest sometime in the last 50 years, you probably get that little wool patch for putting flies on there. I used one of those for probably about a decade until I realized I lost a lot of flies. I'm like, oh, you weren't doing it right. No, I just go through the bushes and I'm in a hurry and things like that. I'm not a fan. I've done a number of things to effectively fill that void over the years. One was I took a little fly box and put a Velcro patch on the back of it, and I stuck that to my vest. That worked okay until the Velcro kind of pooped out on me. I do have one product I like to use quite a bit when I have a big pack, and it's just a rubber tube, and the flies go through there, and whether barbed or barbless, they will hold on tight. But I would say the best bet for keeping your flies secure and handy and in a very streamlined manner, it is the Vitavoo Wader Wallet. So this is it's 4.5 by 5 inches. It's so basically a square. And it is a trifold little fly patch, but it uses the loop fabric from Velcro, and so it is a synthetic. It is incredibly grippy to your flies. I use this material for primarily for my saltwater flies and for my poppers and big streamers because it holds them very, very well. But this little patch, it has a loop on the back that slides over like a pack strap, or I like using it. I put it on my wader strap, so it is always kind of over my my heart, really, because I'm a right-handed caster. And what it has is it has a cover, so it is completely enclosed on the top and on the bottom, but the sides are open to allow airflow, so your flies will dry out. So you can do a couple things. If you want to be minimalistic, this can be your only fly box. So if I know I am fishing mice, the owner of Vitavoo is really good at fishing mice, by the way, for all manner of creatures, fish, mammals, you name it. But if I'm fishing like mice, or if I have one particular hatch I know I'm hitting, all my flies are going to go in there. If I'm going for panfish, just a handful of poppers are in there. And then this thing seals up and it stays right there, streamlined, and you can fish all day with those flies, and they will stay safe as you're bushwhacking, or they will dry out because there is that airflow that goes through the sides. Just a really, really clever little product. They come in a handful of colors. They build it to order for you, and it's just a great solution to keep your vest or your wader pocket or your sling pack a little bit more open, because those core flies are now up and out of the way, and they're going to stay dry, especially if you're wading wet and you're not particularly tall like me. Well, there's a lot more I could say about that, but it's just a clever little product. I'll put a link for it in the show notes for this podcast's page over at castingacross.com. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app and rate the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.